With Dr. Said, for the second class we begin. Understand the investigations triad, risk response forensics. Linking threat, vulnerability, and risk with security controls. Prioritize your defenses for a stronger digital domain. This is essential for the SOC analyst and the risk professional.
Welcome everyone to EInvestigations. This is week 2, and we're kicking off our second lab session. Today, we're diving straight into the foundational concept that underpins everything we do in cybersecurity, the Investigations Triad. Think of it as the 3 musketeers of digital defense, each one essential, and together they form an unbreakable shield. Let's explore what these 3 critical areas are. So, what is this triad? It's a 3-pronged approach to security. First, we have vulnerability threat assessment and risk management. This is our proactive defense, like getting a health checkup for your systems. We're testing and verifying their integrity. Second, intrusion detection and incident response. This is the security guard watching the door. It detects attacks using automated tools and monitors network logs. Finally, we have the core of our course, digital forensic investigation. This is the detective work. If an incident happens, we manage the investigation and conduct forensic analysis to find the evidence. Remember, prevention, detection, investigation. They all work together. Let's zoom in on the first part, risk management. It's a simple 4-step process, but deeply strategic. Step 1, identify the risks. Step 2, analyze them. Step 3, develop a response strategy. And Step 4, mitigate their future impact. The whole point is to prevent problems or lessen their effects. But here's the reality check, students. No system is perfect. We must plan for the fact that skilled attackers will find their way in. That preparation is what makes a good security professional great. Security isn't a one-time project. It's a lifestyle. Think of it like continuous assessment and improvement. Security management is a cycle of continuous improvement. Threats evolve every single day, so our defense needs constant evaluation and adaptation. We're always checking, fixing, and improving. It never stops. Before we get into the details, let's nail down the 3 fundamental terms you'll hear constantly in this field: vulnerability, threat, and risk. Simply put, a vulnerability is a weakness, like an unlocked door. A threat is someone or something trying to exploit that weakness, the burglar. And risk is the potential harm that happens when the burglar walks through the unlocked door. Got it? Weakness, exploiter, potential harm. Let's solidify those concepts with some real-world examples. A vulnerability is a flaw in design or procedure, like forgetting to enforce ID card scanning. A threat is the potential source of harm, an actor with motivation, such as a hacker stealing information. Risk, as we said, is the potential for that threat to actually cause damage to the organization's assets. Look at this diagram showing a man-in-the-middle attack. This visually represents how risk happens. A threat, the attacker, activates a vulnerability, the unsecured router, to cause harm to the information system. It's always the combination, a threat finding a weakness, that creates the actual risk. Time to list out some common weak spots. A vulnerability is anything that leaves a device open to harm. We see a lot of recurring problems. Improper configuration of hardware, not applying patches quickly enough, bugs in the software, poor physical security, and of course, basics like insecure passwords. All of these create attack opportunities. The human element is often our biggest target. Untrained users are a huge operational vulnerability. They might not spot a social engineering attack. Also, companies often neglect planning for critical business processes, especially for systems reaching their end of life. Finally, we have system sprawl. Too many systems for limited personnel to manage, leading to undocumented and unmanaged assets. Security isn't just about code, it's about people and planning. Let's move from weaknesses to the danger itself, threats. A threat is any event or action that could potentially cause damage to an asset, such as changes to information or interruption of services. The crucial distinction is that threats can be either intentional, a hacker, or unintentional, an employee mistake. Both are threats to information security. An attack is the technique used to exploit a vulnerability. It's the act of the threat actor. We categorize them into 5 main types: physical security attacks, network-based attacks, web application-based attacks, social engineering attacks, and general software-based attacks. Understanding these attack categories is your first step in building effective defense strategies. Risk, once again, is the exposure to potential damage or loss. When we talk about IT risk, it includes system, power, network, and physical losses, and it also affects our people, practices, and processes. Every organization must incorporate risk management when designing security, assessing both the likelihood of the threat and the damage it would cause. Risk management is the formal practice of staying ahead of the game, identifying potential risks, analyzing them, and taking precautionary steps to reduce that risk. Essentially, we are quantifying risk as the probability of a threat exploiting a vulnerability multiplied by the probable value of damage to our assets. This slide reinforces the process. It's a continuous loop of identifying risks, analyzing them, developing a response, and mitigating their future impact. This disciplined approach is what helps prevent or at least lessen the severity of security incidents when they happen. Before we manage a risk, we have to analyze it. This involves 3 key determinations. First, what vulnerabilities can a threat exploit? Second, what is the possibility of damage occurring? And third, what is the extent of the potential damage? These 3 components give us the full picture we need to prioritize our resources. When an incident happens, panic is the enemy. We use an incident priority matrix to stay cool and prioritize. The highest priority incidents impact core business services for the whole organization. The lowest priority incidents are minor inconveniences to small groups. This matrix ensures our response efforts are efficient and focused on maintaining operational stability. This slide is blank. The note mentions delegate, which suggests a quick reminder to delegate tasks based on the priority matrix. Use this slide as a brief transition. Remember, based on that matrix, part of incident response is knowing when to delegate. Here is the clear separation between the 2 major phases. Risk analysis is all about gathering information, identifying assets, finding vulnerabilities, calculating the likelihood and impact. It's the data collection phase. Risk management is the action phase, identifying countermeasures to fix or reduce the risks, and making sure all those findings and decisions are clearly documented. Once you've analyzed a risk, you need a response. We have several techniques: acceptance, living with a low-impact risk; avoidance, not doing the risky activity at all; mitigation, reducing the impact or likelihood; deterrence, discouraging the attacker; and transference, like buying insurance. Choosing the right technique depends entirely on the risk's nature, likelihood, and impact. It's a tough truth, but you cannot eliminate all risk or all threats. Our goal is to manage them. That's why documentation is essential. We need to accurately calculate the impact, which involves balancing the costs of potential losses against the costs of mitigation. We often use vulnerability tables to systematically document all these factors. Let's return to the continuous nature of security management. It involves 3 ongoing steps related to security controls. First, identify the controls. Second, implement them, like installing firewalls. Third, and most importantly, monitor them, constantly detecting and solving any security issues that arise. Security requires constant vigilance and adaptation. What exactly are controls? They are the countermeasures we put in place to avoid, mitigate, or counteract security risks. They can be physical, like a lock, or logical, like encryption. We broadly categorize them by when they act. Prevention controls stop the bad thing from happening. Detection controls flag it when it is happening. And correction controls minimize the damage after it has occurred. Use this slide to bridge the gap and emphasize the full range of controls. We need to know that controls are a full spectrum, including deterrent, preventive, detective, corrective, and compensating measures, which we are about to look at. Now let's look at 5 specific types of controls. Deterrent controls act to influence the attacker's motivation, reducing the likelihood they even try. Think of strict laws that increase punishment. Preventive controls act before an event to stop specific actions from occurring. A great example is a man-trap, that dual-door system that prevents tailgating. Here's a quick visual or thought to illustrate a man-trap and how it prevents tailgating. Next, we have detective controls. These are designed to facilitate the detection of a security breach. They can act during an event, like an alarm alerting operators, or after an event, like a regular review of system access logs. They are the see something, say something controls. The last 2 types are crucial for recovery and flexibility. Corrective controls are used after an event to minimize damage. The best example is backups. They help you quickly resume normal operations after a data loss. Compensating controls are used when you can't directly meet a requirement. For instance, a fire suppression system doesn't stop a fire, but it limits the damage caused by the fire, compensating for the incapacity to prevent all fires. So, what is the security manager's core job? They are the orchestrators. They must determine how, when, and who uses the facility. They must identify assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and countermeasure requirements. Then, they develop a concept of security operations and critically integrate that concept with the entire organization's daily operations. A security baseline is simply a template, a collection of ideal host security settings. We use it to compare against the actual security settings of every device in our network. This is critical for the host hardening process, making it consistent and streamlined. Each baseline is customized based on the computer's function. Logging is the process of an operating system or application recording data about activity. These logs are vital. They can reveal a suspected attack. It's the digital trail left behind. However, be aware that highly detailed logging can consume huge amounts of storage. Best practice is to restrict access to logs and back them up routinely. A security policy is the formal blueprint for security. It describes how the organization will protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its data and resources. Think of it like a government's foreign policy. It's determined by the organization's needs, based on real or perceived threats, and defines how to handle those threats. Let's clarify 2 policy types. A security policy defines what information to protect and applies to the resources under the organization's control. An acceptable use policy, AUP, on the other hand, applies to the people, the users and interfaces. Security procedures implement the AUP, and we must constantly monitor compliance to maintain accountability. User policies are the clear guidelines for employees to protect the organization from internal threats. These include things like acceptable use, privacy, password policies, wireless BYOD, rules for using personal devices, and social media policies. Clear rules are essential for safeguarding digital assets. Here is a key distinction. Implementing the acceptable use policy is essentially a management issue, getting people to follow the rules. Implementing the security policy is more of a technical issue, setting up firewalls and encryption. The technical mechanisms must provide the audit trails needed to enforce the AUP. Here's a thought-provoking question for you. Is information security management just another name for information security governance? Take a moment to think about that distinction. Is there a difference, or are they interchangeable? This slide refers to a pyramid visualization. Use it to introduce the layered answer. Take a look at this pyramid structure. It helps visualize the difference between the strategic and operational roles we are about to discuss. The answer is no. They are distinct. IT security management, ISM, is concerned with doing things right, making the operational decisions to mitigate risks and implementing controls. Information security governance, ISG, is concerned with doing the right thing, determining who is authorized to make decisions, and providing oversight to ensure security strategies align with business objectives. Management recommends, governance authorizes, and oversees the alignment. Let's look at assessments. A security assessment is an evaluation of a system's security based on its current configuration. It determines if the setup matches our ideal security baseline. A vulnerability assessment is the process of cross-checking security controls to expose any weaknesses or gaps in our tools and operations. How do we conduct these assessments? We use a variety of techniques. We review baselines, we review code for flaws, and we look closely at the security architecture and design to make sure the foundation is sound. These techniques are crucial for a complete picture of our security posture. We have two main types of security testing. A vulnerability scan is a passive test. It identifies vulnerabilities but does not exploit any weaknesses. It's like an X-ray. A penetration test, or pen test, is an active test. It simulates an actual attack to demonstrate how vulnerabilities can be exploited, which helps us determine the real-world impact of a threat. After a vulnerability scan, you must prioritize results based on the severity of the risk. You address the most critical risks first. A penetration test often follows a scan, but you don't need to pen test every single vulnerability, just the high-priority ones to confirm the impact. Penetration testing is using active tools and techniques to evaluate security by simulating attacks. It verifies a threat exists and exploits the vulnerability. Because it's so intrusive and risks actual system damage, it's less common. However, the information gathered from pen tests is far more thorough than a simple scan. This is the most critical point about pen testing. You must gain consent from the system owner beforehand. Without consent, you are legally viewed as a malicious attacker. To manage this, a rules of engagement document is mandatory. It clearly defines the boundaries of the test and provides the legal authorization for the testers to perform the simulation. We've reached the end of Week 2's on EInvestigations. We dove deep into the Investigations Triad, understanding the critical difference between threats, vulnerabilities, and risks, and how comprehensive risk management and testing, like penetration testing, are essential to keeping systems secure. It's a complex field, but you are now equipped with the foundational knowledge to move forward. Thank you for your engagement and insightful participation today. I look forward to seeing you all next week as we continue our journey into digital defense.